And if I want to stay? Then I'd have to say no. He touched her face gently, a gesture that contrasted sharply with the violence he'd just orchestrated. Because I care too much to let you stay in this darkness. Go. Be brilliant. Be free. And if, when you're done, when you've lived and learned and become who you're meant to be, if you still want me, then I'll be waiting. The chemical smell never quite left her clothes, no matter how many times she washed them. It clung to her skin like a second shadow, mixing with the perpetual scent of rain that seemed to follow the trailer park where she had made her kingdom of rust and survival. The edge of the city was a forgotten place, tucked between trees and roads that led nowhere, where people came to disappear and she had come to reinvent herself. Once she was the brightest student in her high school. Numbers came easily, she could see patterns in mathematics the way other people saw colors. Science even more so. Chemistry had felt like magic in her hands, the periodic table a language she spoke fluently while her classmates stumbled over molecular bonds and reaction rates. Her teachers had talked about scholarships, about MIT and Caltech, about a future so bright it hurt to look at directly. Then her mother collapsed. One moment her mother was laughing at the kitchen table, the next she was on the floor, her face twisted in pain, her body seizing. The ambulance. The hospital. The diagnosis that came with words like chronic, and progressive, and expensive. The bills that piled up like accusations, each one a reminder that in America, staying alive was a luxury reserved for those who could afford it. School became impossible. Not because she couldn't do the work, she could have done it in her sleep, but because survival demanded a different kind of brilliance. The kind that didn't come with scholarships or teacher recommendations. The kind that required her to take everything she knew about chemistry and twist it into something darker, more profitable, more dangerous. She became a drug chef. At first it was terrifying. Every batch felt like a moral compromise, every sale a piece of her soul exchanged for her mother's medication. But she was precise, meticulous, unmatched in her craft. The meth she produced shined too clean, burned too pure. It was dangerous in its perfection, and that perfection made her valuable in a world where value was the only thing that kept you alive. Word spread the way it always did in the underworld, through whispers and desperate recommendations, through the universal language of quality that transcended gang affiliations and territorial disputes. Within months she had a reputation. The girl in the trailer who made product so good it seemed almost pharmaceutical. Gangs came knocking. Los Serpientes first, their leader swaggering into her space like he owned it, making threats disguised as offers. Then the North Side crew, playing good cop to the Serpientes' bad cop routine. Each one thought they could intimidate her or seduce her into exclusive supply, that a young woman working alone would be easy prey. They learned differently. She didn't flinch when they threatened her. Didn't smile when they tried charm. When Miguel Santos from Los Serpientes grabbed her arm, squeezed hard enough to bruise, his breath hot with tequila and entitlement, she picked up the baseball bat she kept by the door and broken 3 of his ribs before he could blink. She worked alone, ruthless when she needed to be, collecting debts herself with that same bat when respect ran thin. After Santos they came with respect. Or they didn't come at all. The only soul she trusted was the dog, a German Shepherd mix she'd rescued from the side of the road 2 years ago, half-starved and scarred from fights. She'd named him Cypher, and he'd become her silent witness and protector, sleeping at her feet while she worked, his ears swiveling toward every suspicious sound. One evening, after visiting the hospital to deposit money for her mother's care, cash in an envelope, no questions asked by administrators who'd learned to look the other way, she returned to find black cars outside her trailer. 3 of them, sleek and expensive, completely out of place in her neighborhood of rust and poverty. Armed men waited outside, professional in their stillness, their weapons visible but not raised. Her hand moved instinctively to the bat in her truck, but something stopped her. This wasn't a gang-flexing muscle. This was something else entirely. I'm not interested in whatever you're selling. The man on her steps was young, younger than she'd expected, wearing a suit that probably cost more than her trailer. His smile was pleasant and utterly empty. Miss Cruz? My employer would like a word. Inside if you don't mind. I mind. He's already inside. Her blood went cold. She pushed past the suited man, bat raised, and went inside her trailer. A man dressed in black sat calmly at her table, stroking Cypher's head. Her dog, who growled at strangers and had bitten 2 people trying to rob her, sat contentedly under this man's hand like a trained pet. A gun rested on the table beside him, casual as a coffee cup, an afterthought rather than a threat. You're late, the man said without looking up. His voice carried an accent she couldn't quite place, Italian maybe, smooth by years in America. I've been waiting 20 minutes. Get out of my house, she said flatly, the bat solid in her hands. This isn't a house. It's a metal can that smells like acetone. He looked up then, and his eyes were dark and assessing, cataloging everything about her in a single glance. But you keep it clean. Organized. That speaks well of you. I don't care what it speaks. Get out. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Sit. We should discuss business. I don't have business with you. Not yet. He gestured to the chair across from him. The gun didn't move. Neither did he. But you will. Please. Sit. Something in his absolute calm made her obey, not fear exactly but a calculation. If he'd wanted her dead, she'd already be dead. Those men outside, that gun on the table, this was theater, not threat. She sat slowly, keeping the bat across her lap, keeping her eyes on his hands. What do you want? To meet the genius everyone's talking about. He pulled a small bag from his jacket, blue-white crystals, professionally packaged. I had this analyzed. 96% purity. Remarkable. Most cooks in this city can barely manage 70 on a good day. So I want to know if you're as good as they say. He produced another bag, this one cloudier, the crystals uneven. Tell me what you see. She took it, examined it with practiced eyes. The flaws were obvious. Contamination from improper precursor purification, crystalline structure compromised by rushed cooling, residual solvents that would make the end user sick. Garbage. Whoever made this used the iodine reduction method without understanding the chemistry. The cooling was too fast, probably because they were scared of getting caught. This would work, but it would rot your customers' teeth and give them chemical burns in their lungs. And if I asked you to replicate it? She looked up sharply. Why would you want me to make something inferior? His smile widened, became genuine. To see if you would lie to me. Many people claim expertise they don't possess. You didn't even try to pretend. I don't lie about chemistry. The numbers don't care about your feelings or your business plans. They just are. Honest. I appreciate that. He stood, the gun disappearing into his jacket with practiced ease. Cypher stood too, tail wagging, like he was sad to see the stranger leave. I'll be in touch. Who are you? He paused at the door, looked back. Someone who recognizes talent when he sees it. Don't leave town. And if anyone threatens you in the next week, call me instead of breaking their ribs. He placed a card on the table. No name, just a phone number. I need to know who else is interested in what I'm interested in. Then he was gone, the black cars pulling away like smoke, leaving her standing in her trailer with a dog who'd betrayed her and a business card that felt like a death sentence or a salvation. She couldn't tell which. 7 days later, her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered it standing at her lab table in the middle of measuring precursors for her next batch. $1 million worth of product, the voice said without preamble. The same accent, the same absolute confidence. Can you deliver? She laughed, harsh, disbelieving. I work out of a trailer with equipment I bought off Craigslist. You want industrial quantities, you need an industrial operation. Who is this? Check your news. Search for Moretti. She pulled up her phone's browser with one hand, typed the name. The results made her sit down hard on her stool. Dante Moretti, the don of the city's Italian syndicate, the man who controlled everything from the ports to the politicians, who'd consolidated power 5 years ago in what the media called restructuring, and the streets called a bloodbath. Her voice came out strangled. You're supposed to be old. 60, maybe 70. You're an imposter. Some kind of. I'm 35. My father was the old Don. I inherited young. His voice carried dark amusement. What's your account number? What? Your bank account. Give me the number. She rattled it off before her brain caught up with her mouth, still staring at photos of Dante Moretti on her phone. Handsome in a dangerous way, dark eyes that seemed to see through the camera lens. Her phone buzzed. A notification from her banking app. $1 million. Deposited. Verified. Real. Oh my God, she whispered. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. I thought you were? You thought I was lying. That's smart. Trust is expensive in our world. His voice softened slightly. The money's real. So is the order. When can you have it ready? Her mind raced through calculations, through logistical nightmares, through the sheer impossibility of scaling up her operation. I've never done that amount before. I need time. Equipment. Help. At least a month, maybe 2. 1 month. I'll provide equipment and an extra pair of hands. Deliver half the order on time and I'll double the payment. And if I can't? Then I'll assume you've stolen from me. His tone didn't change, but the threat was clear as crystal. Which I take personally. Reality settled hard like a weight on her chest. This wasn't a negotiation. This was a command dressed up as an offer, with $1 million sitting in her account as both payment and leash. 1 month, she agreed, her voice steadier than she felt. But I work alone. Your man watches, he doesn't touch anything. Fair enough. He'll arrive tomorrow. The line went dead. The man who arrived the next morning introduced himself as Marco, mid-30s, built like a boxer, with careful eyes that tracked every movement. Mr. Moretti says you need security and supply lines. I provide both. I need equipment, not a babysitter. Good, because I'm not a babysitter. I'm insurance. He surveyed her trailer with professional assessment. If someone tries to kill you, I kill them first. Simple arrangement. For 2 weeks she worked without sleep. Marco secured a small warehouse, helped her acquire proper equipment. Real glass, industrial heating elements, proper ventilation systems. She produced batch after batch, her hands steady even as exhaustion made her vision blur, her focus absolute even as her body screamed for rest. The product came out perfect every time. Crystalline. Pure. Deadly in its perfection. When Dante Moretti came to collect half the order, he examined the product with the same careful attention he'd given that first test, holding crystals up to the light, checking crystalline structure. Impressive, he said finally. You've exceeded expectations. I do good work. You do excellent work. He looked at her, then really looked at her, and something shifted in his expression. You should be in a university lab, not cooking meth in a warehouse. Yeah, well, universities don't pay hospital bills. He nodded slowly, like she'd confirmed something he already knew. Then he left with half her inventory and a promise to return in 2 weeks for the rest. One afternoon, 2 days before the deadline, she went into town for supplies. Just routine, more glassware, some precursor chemicals from her usual supplier who asked no questions. She was on her bicycle, pedaling back toward the warehouse, maybe a few 100 feet away when the explosion happened. Her trailer erupted in a ball of flame and force, the shockwave knocking her off her bicycle, the heat washing over her even from that distance. She hit the ground hard, her ears ringing, her vision blurred with tears from the sudden brightness. Marco had been inside. Marco was dead. No, she gasped, scrambling to her feet. No, no, no. Then another thought worse than the first, Cypher. She'd left Cypher in the trailer that morning because the warehouse had been too cold. Cypher. She ran toward the flames, screaming his name, the heat pushing her back but her legs carrying her forward anyway. Cypher, baby, please? A bark. Behind her. She spun, and there he was, Cypher, limping out of the tree line, singed but alive, his tail between his legs but his eyes bright and focused on her. He must have gotten out somehow, must have run when he heard the explosion. She collapsed to her knees, grabbed him, sobbed into his fur while he licked her face with frantic concern. Then her brain kicked back in. Someone had just blown up her trailer. Marco was dead. This wasn't an accident. She'd seen something in the moment before the explosion, a glint of metal in the sky, something drone-like hovering above the trailer before it descended and detonated. She looked up toward the road and saw it. A vehicle approaching in the distance, moving fast toward the warehouse. They were coming to finish the job. Come on, baby, she whispered to Cypher, getting to her feet. Her bicycle was a few feet away, miraculously intact. She grabbed it, lifted Cypher into the basket. He was big but she was desperate, and pedaled hard toward the woods. The trees swallowed them. She abandoned the main path immediately, taking narrow trails she'd explored as a kid when this area had been her escape from a difficult home life. Behind her, she heard vehicles, voices, the organized sounds of a search. When she was deep enough that the sounds faded, she pulled out her phone, hands shaking so hard she almost dropped it. The number Moretti had given her. She dialed it. Talk, his voice commanded. Someone blew up my trailer. Use some kind of drone or weapon. Marco's dead. There's a vehicle coming toward the warehouse. They're hunting me. Where are you? Woods. East of the warehouse. I have my dog, I have my bike, but I can't. There's too many of them. Listen to me carefully. His voice was steel. Turn off your phone. Remove the SIM card and throw it as far as you can. Head northeast, following the creek bed. There's a clearing about 2 miles in. Can you make it? I can make it. I'm sending extraction. 20 minutes. Stay hidden. Stay alive. The line went dead. She powered down her phone, popped out the SIM card, hurled it into the underbrush. Then she pedaled, following the creek like he'd said. Cypher balanced precariously in the basket, her legs burning with effort. The bicycle became impossible to manage after a mile, the terrain too rough, the path too narrow. She abandoned it, shouldered her backpack and ran with Cypher at her heels. The clearing appeared like salvation, a break in the trees, flat enough for what she hoped was coming. She crouched at the edge with Cypher pressed against her side, listening to the forest, to the distant sounds of searchers getting closer. Then she heard it, helicopter rotors cutting through the air. The spotlight found her, blinding and perfect. A rope ladder dropped and hands reached down, professional, military, efficient. "Come on," a voice shouted over the rotor noise. "Dog first, then you." She lifted Cypher, watched strong hands pull him into the helicopter, then grabbed the ladder herself. Her arms screamed with effort as she climbed, hand over hand, the ground falling away beneath her. Someone pulled her into the cabin, and then they were lifting, rising above the trees, the burning trailer a distant orange glow in the darkness. Across the helicopter cabin, Dante Moretti watched her with those dark, assessing eyes. She was covered in dirt and ash, her hands bleeding from the climb, her dog pressed against her side. But she met his gaze without flinching. "Welcome," he said over the rotor noise, "to a world you never planned to enter." The estate materialized from darkness like something from a dream, or a nightmare depending on perspective. Wrought iron gates whispered open at their approach, revealing a driveway lined with ancient oaks whose branches formed a canopy overhead. At the end of that long drive sat a mansion that looked like it had been stolen from the Italian countryside and transplanted to American soil through sheer force of wealth and will. The helicopter landed on a pad behind the main house. Dante helped her down, his hand firm on her elbow, steadying her when her legs threatened to give out from exhaustion and adrenaline crash. Cypher jumped down after her, immediately alert despite his injuries, scanning this new territory with suspicious eyes. "This way," Dante said, leading them toward the house. His tone was gentle but commanding, the voice of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "You'll want to clean up. Then we'll talk. I want to know who tried to kill me." "You will. After you clean up." He paused at a side entrance, looked down at her. In the exterior lights, she could see concern in his expression. Real concern, not the calculated sympathy of a businessman protecting an asset. "You're safe here. I promise you that." Inside, the house was even more overwhelming than the approach suggested. Marble floors, artwork that probably cost more than her entire life, furniture that looked antique and priceless. A woman appeared from a side hallway, middle-aged, stern-faced, her gray hair pulled into a severe bun. "Maria, prepare the guest suite. And arrange for food for her and the dog." Maria's eyes took in the sight of them, dirt-covered, exhausted, traumatized, and her expression softened fractionally. "Of course, sir. This way, miss." She followed Maria up a curved staircase to the second floor, down a hallway lined with paintings, to a suite of rooms that were bigger than her trailer had been. The bedroom alone would have fit her entire living space. "Bathroom is through there," Maria said, pointing to another door. "I'll bring clothes." "What size?" Maybe 10? She couldn't remember the last time she'd bought clothes new. "I'll bring options." Maria's eyes dropped to Cypher. "I'll bring food for him too. He looks loyal." "He is." When Maria left, she stood in the center of the room feeling like an imposter. Everything here screamed wealth and permanence, while she was temporary, disposable, a chemistry experiment that had outlived its usefulness. The shower was obscene. All marble and gold fixtures, with water pressure that felt like absolution and water that ran hot without sputtering or stopping after 5 minutes like her trailer shower had. She stood under it until the smoke smell left her skin, until the dirt spiraled down the drain, until her hands stopped shaking. Marco was dead. Her trailer was destroyed. Someone had tried to murder her with military-grade weapons. And she was standing in a Mafia Don's mansion, being offered safety by a man who dealt in violence and corruption. When she emerged, wrapped in a towel that was softer than anything she'd ever owned, Maria had left clothes on the bed, designer jeans that fit perfectly, a cashmere sweater in deep green, undergarments still in packaging. She dressed mechanically, her mind elsewhere. In the sitting room attached to the bedroom, she found Cypher devouring a plate of what looked like actual steak, his tail wagging despite his ordeal. Food waited for her too, pasta with cream sauce, fresh bread, a glass of wine. She ate without tasting it, fueled by survival instinct rather than appetite. An hour later, Dante knocked on her door. "May I come in? It's your house." He entered anyway, carrying 2 glasses of whiskey. He'd changed too, casual clothes now, dark pants and a button-down shirt that somehow made him look more dangerous rather than less. He handed her one of the glasses, settled into the chair across from her. "The rival syndicate," he said without preamble. "The Kozlov family. They've been trying to undercut my operations for months. When they learned I'd found a chemist, a brilliant one, they decided elimination was simpler than competition. So this is your fault." He didn't flinch from the accusation. "Yes. Your talent made you valuable. Value makes you a target. This is the world you entered when you accepted my offer." "I didn't accept anything. You deposited money in my account and told me to deliver or die. And you could have run. Disappeared. Gone to the police with evidence of my crimes." He sipped his whiskey, watching her over the rim. "But you didn't. You saw the opportunity and you took it. You chose this even if the choice was made from desperate circumstances." She wanted to argue, but he wasn't wrong. Desperation had narrowed her options, but she'd still chosen. Had still decided that her mother's life was worth the moral compromise. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "Now you stay here, under my protection, until the threat is neutralized. The Kozlovs need to learn that attacking my interests has consequences." "How long?" "As long as necessary. I need to call the hospital. Check on my mother." "Already done. I've assigned security there as well." "She's safe." Of course he had. The man controlled everything, anticipated everything. It should have been reassuring. Instead it felt like a cage with invisible bars. The days that followed developed a strange rhythm. Dante came and went on business he didn't discuss, leaving her to explore the estate with Cypher as her constant shadow. She discovered the library on her third day, a two-story room lined floor to ceiling with books that ranged from leather-bound classics to cutting-edge scientific journals. She lost herself in them. Organic chemistry texts, quantum mechanics, the pure mathematics she'd loved before life had twisted her path. Knowledge poured back into her like water into cracked earth, and for the first time in years she felt like herself, like the girl who'd dreamed of MIT and Nobel Prizes instead of the woman who'd become a criminal to survive. Dante found her there one evening, curled in a leather chair with a journal on polymer synthesis. He didn't announce himself, just settled into the chair across from her with his own book, something in Italian, old and leather-bound. They read in silence for over an hour. It was oddly comfortable, this quiet companionship with a dangerous man who'd pulled her out of one hell and into another. "Why chemistry?" he asked finally, not looking up from his book. She closed her journal. "What? You could have been anything. Doctor. Engineer. Physicist. Why chemistry specifically?" "I didn't choose it. It chose me." She set the journal aside. "When I was 12, my science teacher did this demonstration, dropped sodium into water and it exploded. Just this tiny piece of metal reacting with water created fire. And she explained that it wasn't magic, it was just electrons. Just atoms sharing or not sharing. Just rules that never changed no matter who was following them. I realized that chemistry was the one place where truth was absolute. You can't lie to the periodic table. An element either bonds or it doesn't. The reaction either works or it fails. No gray area. No politics or prejudice or poverty changing the outcome. Unlike people." "Unlike people," she agreed softly. He was quiet for a long moment, studying her with that unnerving intensity. "I looked into your academic record after we first met. Full scholarship to MIT. Near-perfect SAT scores. Your chemistry professor called you the most naturally gifted student she taught in 30 years. She's been trying to track you down, you know. She thinks something terrible happened to you." Lena's throat tightened. "Something terrible did happen. It doesn't have to define you." He leaned forward. "Return to school. Finish what you started. Become what you were meant to be." "And who takes care of my mother while I'm pursuing my dreams?" "I will." The words came out flat, certain, like a contract being signed. "Full medical care. Private facility. Whatever she needs for as long as she needs it. You go back to school." The offer hung in the air between them, too generous to be real, too perfect to trust. "Why would you do that?" "Because wasting your mind making drugs for addicts is like using a Da Vinci to paint a fence." His voice was quiet but intense. "And because I can. Because I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, and spending it on something worthwhile appeals to me. Nothing's free. What do you want in return?" "Finish your education. Then come work for me, legitimately. I own pharmaceutical companies, chemical manufacturers, research facilities. Put that brilliant mind to use creating things instead of destroying people." "You mean launder your drug money through legal enterprises and give yourself plausible deniability?" He smiled, acknowledging the truth. among other things. But yes, she should have refused. Should have thrown his offer back in his face and demanded he just keep his promise to protect her mother while she figured out her own path. But the truth was she'd been drowning for so long that the idea of air felt like fantasy. I need to think about it, she said finally. Take your time. You're not leaving this estate until it's safe anyway. 3 weeks passed in that strange limbo. She read, she thought, she played with Cypher in the estate's extensive gardens. Dante was often absent, handling his business presumably, but when he was home they fell into an easy rhythm of shared meals and library time and conversations that ranged from chemistry to philosophy to his childhood in Sicily. She was beginning to feel almost comfortable when her phone rang in the middle of the night. She'd been in the library again, had taken to sleeping there sometimes, surrounded by books, Cypher sprawled across her feet, when the vibration startled her awake. Unknown number, but she recognized the area code. The hospital. Miss Cruz? A woman's voice, professional but strained. This is Mercy General Hospital. I'm calling about your mother. Every muscle in her body went rigid. What happened? Is she? She's missing. She was in her room at 9 p.m. bed check. By midnight rounds she was gone. We've searched the entire facility, called security, notified police. I'm so sorry, but we can't locate her anywhere. The phone slipped from numb fingers. She was running before conscious thought caught up, her feet carrying her through the dark hallways of the estate, slamming open doors until she found Dante's study. He was at his desk despite the hour, phone pressed to his ear, but he looked up when she burst in. My mother, she gasped. The hospital, she's missing. They can't find her. His expression went cold and deadly in an instant. He spoke rapidly in Italian into his phone, then ended the call with a sharp gesture. When? Between 9 p.m. and midnight. They just called me. They should have called 3 hours ago. He was already moving, pulling on a jacket, reaching for something in his desk drawer, a gun, she realized with detached clarity. Stay here. I'll handle this. Like how? She grabbed his arm, surprising both of them with her strength. That's my mother. I'm coming. This isn't negotiable. You're right, it's not. She met his eyes, defiant despite her terror. You want to lock me in my room, you'll have to shoot me. I'm not helpless, I'm not useless, and I'm not staying behind while my mother is God knows where with God knows who. Something shifted in his expression, surprise maybe or respect. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded sharply. Get a jacket. We leave in 2 minutes. The drive to the hospital was tense, silent except for Dante's rapid-fire phone calls in Italian. His voice was clipped, commanding, terrifying in its absolute authority. She stared out the window, her mind racing through worst-case scenarios, each one more horrifying than the last. At the hospital, the administrator met them in the lobby, nervous and apologetic. Mr. Moretti, I'm deeply sorry. We've reviewed security footage. Mrs. Cruz appears to have left voluntarily around 10:15 through the south entrance. She was ambulatory but seemed confused. Show me, Dante commanded. They crowded into the security office, watching grainy black and white footage. Her mother, in a hospital gown and robe, walking steadily, not confused at all, actually moving with purpose, toward the south exit. She paused once, looked back as if checking if anyone was following, then continued out the door where a black sedan waited, no plates visible. She wasn't confused, she whispered, horror dawning. Look at her. She knew exactly what she was doing. Someone told her to do this. Or threatened her into cooperation, Dante finished grimly. He turned to the administrator. I want names. Every staff member who interacted with her today. Every visitor. Every delivery person. Everyone. In the car, she turned on him with fury born of terror and helplessness. This is your fault. Your world, your wars, your enemies. You brought this into my life and now they've taken my mother because of you. Yes. The simple admission stopped her cold. What? This is my fault. He drove with controlled precision, his jaw tight. My world. My consequences. I knew the risks when I recruited you. I thought I could protect you both. I was wrong. The lack of deflection, the raw honesty somehow made it worse. So what now? We wait for a ransom demand? They kill her to send you a message? No. His voice dropped to something deadly. Now I tell you something I should have told you weeks ago. He pulled into an empty parking lot, killed the engine, turned to face her fully. I've known about you for 2 years, Lena. The words didn't compute. What? 2 years? Since before you started cooking. Before your mother got sick. His eyes held hers, unflinching. Your high school chemistry teacher kept samples of your work, not the students' originals, just copies for her own files. She showed them to a colleague at a conference. That colleague does consulting work for some of my legitimate businesses. He brought them to my attention because he thought you were the most talented student he'd ever seen through proxy. I had you investigated. Started watching you. Watching me, she repeated, her voice hollow. Making sure you were safe. When you started cooking, I knew. I could have stopped you, turned you in, but I was curious. I wanted to see what you'd do. How far your talent would take you. He reached for her hand, but she jerked away. When your mother's condition worsened, when the bills got worse, I paid off cops who were getting too close to you. Quietly handled small-time dealers who were talking about pressuring you into partnership. When Miguel Santos put his hands on you, his jaw clenched. I was ready to kill him myself. The fact that you handled it was even better. You've been stalking me. The words came out strangled. For 2 years you've been invading my life, manipulating my circumstances. I've been protecting you. Do you have any idea how many times you should have been arrested? How many dealers wanted to force you into their operations? How many addicts tracked down your trailer looking to steal product? His voice rose, losing that careful control. I made sure the police lost evidence. I made sure dangerous people got warned away. I kept you alive, Lena. You had no right. She was shouting now, 2 months of fear and stress and exhaustion pouring out. You had no right to make those decisions for me, to watch me too. How much do you know? What have you seen? Everything. The word fell like a stone. I know you sleep on your left side. I know you eat the same 3 meals on rotation because they're cheap and efficient. I know you sing off-key when you think no one's listening. I know you cry every time you leave the hospital. I know you're brilliant and terrified and doing your best in an impossible situation. The intimacy of it, the invasion, made her feel stripped bare. Why? She whispered. Why me? Because talent like yours is rare. Because I don't let rare things be destroyed by a system that doesn't value them. Because... He stopped, seeming to struggle with something. Because from the moment I saw your work, I was fascinated. And when I met you, when I saw how brave and defiant and unbreakable you were, He didn't finish. The Kozlovs didn't take my mother by accident, she said slowly, pieces falling into place. They took her because they know I matter to you. Because I'm not just a supplier, you're mine. The possessiveness in his voice should have terrified her. Instead, it sent heat through her veins. And they know it. This is retaliation for the operations I've been hitting, the territory I've been taking. They can't hurt me directly, so they hurt what I value. Then give them what they want. They want you dead, Lena. Returning you solves nothing. They'll kill your mother anyway and then come after you. He finally succeeded in catching her hand, his grip firm but gentle. But I can end this. I can get your mother back. You have to trust me. Trust you? She laughed, bitter and broken. You've been lying to me from the start. Manipulating me. Watching me like some kind of obsession. If keeping you alive is an obsession, then yes, I'm guilty. His thumb traced circles on her wrist, a gesture that was probably meant to be comforting but felt dangerous. I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But right now, your mother's life depends on you letting me fix this. They sat in the darkness of the car, something electric and dangerous building between them. She was suddenly aware of how close he was, of the way his eyes tracked from hers down to her mouth and back up, of the heat radiating from his body in the confined space. Why? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Why do you care so much? He looked at her for a long moment, something raw and unguarded flickering across his features. Because you're extraordinary. Because watching you survive when you should have broken made me believe in something I'd stopped believing in years ago. What's that? That some people deserve to be saved. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning she wasn't ready to examine. She pulled her hand from his grasp. Find my mother. After that, we'll talk about what I deserve. He nodded slowly, something like disappointment crossing his face before the Don's mask slid back into place. The Kozlovs have a compound on the north side. That's where they'll be holding her. I'll gather my men. I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. This will be violent. I don't care. She met his eyes, unflinching. She's my mother. I'm not sitting in your mansion drinking wine while you fight my battles. Take me or I'll find my own way there. He studied her, and despite everything, the danger, the urgency, the terrible circumstances, he smiled. You're going to get yourself killed one day. Then you'd better keep me alive. You're apparently very good at that. 20 minutes later, they pulled up to a warehouse district on the north side of the city. Dante made 3 quick phone calls, all in Italian, all clipped and commanding, then turned to her. My men are in position. When we move, you stay behind me. You don't argue, you don't hesitate, you do exactly what I say. Understood? I'm not useless. I know. That's what worries me. He pulled a gun from the center console, checked it with practiced efficiency, then pulled out a second smaller one. Do you know how to use this? Point and shoot, right? Safety off first, then point and shoot. Only if someone is actively trying to kill you. Understand? She took the gun, felt its weight in her hand. It was lighter than she'd expected, colder. Got it? They moved through the darkness toward a large industrial building, Dante leading with absolute confidence. She could see shapes now, men positioned around the perimeter, armed but relaxed, clearly not expecting an attack. Dante raised his hand in a signal. The night exploded with gunfire. It happened so fast she barely processed it. Dante's men opening fire from 3 sides simultaneously, the guards dropping before they could raise their weapons, efficient and professional and terrifying in its precision. Dante moved forward and she stayed close, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. Inside the building was vast and dark, filled with shipping containers stacked like a maze. The smell of chemicals and mildew. And somewhere in that darkness, her mother. She'll be in the back office, Dante said quietly, his gun raised. They'll be expecting me. It's a trap. I don't care. I know. Stay close. They moved through the container maze, every shadow a potential threat, every sound amplified by adrenaline. When they rounded the final corner, the office area was lit up like a stage, bright fluorescent lights illuminating a small space where her mother sat in a chair, alive, unharmed, looking more angry than scared. Mom? She started forward but Dante caught her arm, held her back. Wait. As if on cue, men emerged from behind containers, at least a dozen of them, weapons raised. And from the office itself, a man appeared. Not as old as Dante's father would be, maybe 60, with silver hair and cold blue eyes. Even without introduction she knew who he was. Nikolai Kozlov. Dante Moretti, Kozlov said in heavily accented English. How predictable. I threaten what you value and here you come. Let her go, Nikolai. This is between us. Is it? Kozlov's eyes found her. This must be the brilliant chemist. The one whose product is destroying my market share. She doesn't look so dangerous. Let my mother go, she called out, stepping around Dante despite his grip tightening on her arm. Take me instead. I'm the one you want dead anyway. Lena, no. Dante tried to pull her back but she shook him off. That's what this is about, right? Me making better product than your people? Fine. Kill me. Just let her go first. Kozlov laughed but there was no humor in it. Such bravery. Such noble sacrifice. But I don't think so, little girl. You see, killing you would be too simple. Too quick. He pulled out a phone, pressed a button. I think instead I'll make Dante watch while I kill you both. Let him live with that failure. Then when he's broken I'll kill him too. Nikolai. A new voice, deeper, carrying authority that made everyone freeze. From the shadows near the back of the warehouse, another figure emerged. Older than Dante, much older, maybe 75, but with the same dark eyes, the same commanding presence. He walked with a cane but his posture was straight, his expensive suit immaculate despite the industrial setting. She felt Dante go rigid beside her, felt the shock roll off him in waves. Father, he said, his voice carefully controlled but cracking at the edges. The old man, Dante's father, walked forward slowly, his cane tapping against concrete with each step. He looked at Dante with something that might have been disappointment or might have been satisfaction. It was hard to tell. You've complicated things, Dante, the old man said in Italian accented English. What is this? Dante's gun was still raised, but his hand trembled slightly, with rage or grief she couldn't tell. Business. Strategy. The old man gestured to Kozlov. Nikolai and I have been negotiating a partnership. His supply chains, our distribution network. It's quite profitable. Would have been simpler if you hadn't gotten distracted. Distracted, Dante repeated flatly. By her. The old man's gaze shifted to her, cold and assessing like she was a piece of furniture being appraised. A girl who makes drugs in a trailer. A nobody. You've risked everything, our operations, our reputation, our agreements. For what? Sentiment? She's not a distraction. Dante stopped, seemed to be struggling with something. She's a liability, his father finished. I gave you an empire, Dante. I raised you to lead, to be ruthless, to put business above everything. And you've thrown it away for a woman you barely know. I know her well enough. Do you? The old man moved closer, his cane tapping rhythmically. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to let these women go. You're going to apologize to Nikolai for the territories you've taken, the operations you've disrupted. You're going to marry the Ricci girl like we arranged. And you're going to forget this foolish infatuation. And if I refuse? Then you lose everything. No protection from me or my allies. No resources. No name. The Kozlovs will kill these women and eventually they'll kill you too. His voice was matter-of-fact, discussing business terms. Choose Dante. The Empire or the girl. You can't have both. The silence that followed was absolute and suffocating. She watched Dante's face, saw calculations happening behind his eyes. He'd built his life in this world, had inherited an empire of blood and money and power. Would he really sacrifice all of it for someone he barely knew? Someone who'd accused him of stalking her just hours ago? She found herself holding her breath, waiting. There's a third option, Dante said quietly, lowering his gun. And what's that? His father asked. I keep everything. Dante's voice was deadly calm. The Empire, my independence, and her. I keep it all. His father's laugh was sharp and cruel. You think you can stand against me and Kozlov together? You're one man. No. I'm the man who's been preparing for this moment since I was 16 years old. Dante looked at his father with something like pity. Did you think I didn't know you'd try this eventually? That I haven't been building my own network, securing my own loyalties, preparing for the day you decided I was expendable? You're bluffing. Am I? Dante pulled out his phone, pressed a button. Immediately, doors around the warehouse slammed open. Men poured in, not Kozlov's men, not the guards from before. New men, heavily armed, wearing tactical gear. They moved with military precision, surrounding Kozlov's people, weapons raised. I've known about your partnership with Kozlov for 3 months, Dante continued, his voice cold. I've been letting you think you had the upper hand while I position my pieces. These men answer to me. Half of what you think is your organization answers to me. I've been preparing to take over for years, father. You just gave me the perfect excuse. The old man's face went pale, then red with rage. You dare. I dare. Dante's gun came back up, aimed at his father. Here's my offer. You retire. Quietly, peacefully. You keep your properties, your wealth, your life. But the business belongs to me now. All of it. And if I refuse? Then I let these men decide what happens to you and your new partner. Dante's smile was terrible. My men are quite loyal. They've been waiting for permission to settle old grudges. The old man looked around, saw his position was hopeless, saw that his son had outmaneuvered him completely. Finally he nodded stiffly. You've won this round. No. I've won everything. Dante turned to Kozlov. You have 2 choices. Leave the city by dawn, or I unleash my people on every operation you have. Choose quickly. Kozlov looked between Dante and the old man, saw that his alliance was broken, saw that he was surrounded and outgunned. This isn't over, Moretti? Yes it is. Run while you can. Kozlov and his men retreated slowly, keeping weapons raised until they reached the exits. Then they were gone, the warehouse falling silent except for the shuffling of Dante's men securing the space. Dante holstered his gun and walked toward the office where her mother waited. Mrs. Cruz, I apologize for the circumstances. Let's get you somewhere safe. Her mother stood shakily, and she rushed forward to support her, wrapping her arms around her mother's frail frame. I'm okay, baby, her mother whispered. I'm okay. We need to get you to a hospital, Dante said. I have a private facility prepared. No. She looked up at him, this man who just faced down his father and a rival dawn for them. First you explain what just happened. I planned this. His voice was matter-of-fact. I knew my father would move against me eventually. He's old school, believes in arranged marriages, strategic partnerships, sacrificing individuals for the organization. I've been building my own power base for years, converting his loyalists to mine, preparing for the day he decided I needed to be controlled or eliminated. You used us as bait. No. I used his hatred of weakness as an opportunity. He looked at her steadily. Your mother was never in real danger. I had men inside Kozlov's organization. They were ordered to keep her safe no matter what. If Kozlov had actually tried to hurt her, he'd have been dead before he pulled a trigger. You could have told me. Would you have believed me? Would you have played your part as convincingly if you'd known it was theater? His eyes were intense. I needed my father to think he had the upper hand. I needed him overconfident and exposed. And I needed you angry enough to come with me, brave enough to stand against them. She wanted to hit him, to scream at him for the manipulation, for using her fear as a tool. But she was also aware that her mother was alive, that Dante had just claimed an empire while ensuring their safety, that he'd risked everything on a gamble that could have ended with all of them dead. "What happens now?" she asked finally. "Now I keep my promise." He gestured to his men. "They'll take your mother to the best private hospital in the state. Full security, best doctors, whatever she needs. You." He paused, something vulnerable crossing his features. "You leave the country. Return to school like we discussed. Live the life you should have had. And you? I rebuild. Consolidate power. Make sure my father's old alliances can't hurt you." He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "I need to know you're safe, Lena. That you're away from this world, living and learning and becoming what you were meant to be. Can you do that? And if I want to stay? Then I'd have to say no." He touched her face gently, a gesture that contrasted sharply with the violence he'd just orchestrated. "Because I care too much to let you stay in this darkness. Go. Be brilliant. Be free. And if, when you're done, when you've lived and learned and become who you're meant to be, if you still want me, then I'll be waiting." She looked at him, this dangerous man who'd stalked her and protected her and just toppled an empire for her, and felt something crack in her chest. "How long?" she whispered. "However long it takes. 5 years. 10. A lifetime." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "I'm patient when it matters." 2 days later, she stood at the airport with her mother, both of them holding tickets to Switzerland. A private facility waited for her mother, a university acceptance letter waited for her. Dante had arranged everything: housing, tuition, medical care, even employment for when her mother was healthy enough. He didn't come to say goodbye. Just sent a note with the tickets. "Be extraordinary. Be happy. Be free. And when you're ready, if you're ready, I'll be here. D." She boarded the plane with her mother and Cypher, watching the city fall away beneath them, and let herself cry for the life she was leaving and the future she was terrified to claim. 5 years passed like a dream someone else was living. Lena graduated summa cum laude from ETH Zurich with a doctorate in chemistry, published 7 papers that changed methodologies in pharmaceutical synthesis, and was offered positions at 3 major research institutions. She chose law school instead, international criminal law at the University of Geneva, driven by a need to understand the systems that had both failed her and saved her. Her mother thrived. The Swiss medical care, the clean mountain air, the absence of stress, all of it combined to give her back a life she'd thought was ending. She volunteered at local hospitals, learned to speak passable German, made friends with other expats. They lived in a comfortable apartment overlooking Lake Zurich, a life of peace and normalcy that should have felt like victory. Felt like waiting. Lena never called him. Never searched for news about him. It would have been too easy to fall back into that world, and she'd promised him, that she would build something real, something clean, something that belonged only to her. But he was always there, a ghost in her thoughts. When she defended her dissertation, she wondered if he was proud. When she passed the bar exam, she imagined his smile. When she joined a prestigious firm specializing in international criminal defense, the irony not lost on her, she thought about what he'd say about her defending the kind of people he'd once been. 3 months after starting at the firm, on a Tuesday that began like any other, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Terminal 2. Friday. 3 p.m. D." Her heart stopped, then kicked into overdrive. 5 years of silence, of letting her build a life without him, and now, 3 words and an initial that changed everything. She stared at the message for 20 minutes before responding, "I'll be there." He was coming. After 5 years he was coming. Friday arrived with the weight of destiny. She told her mother she had a work meeting, dressed in her best suit, a Dior piece that made her look powerful and professional and nothing like the girl who'd cooked meth in a trailer. She drove to the airport with hands that wouldn't stop shaking, parked, walked to Terminal 2 like she was walking to her own execution or resurrection. The arrivals board showed his flight had landed 20 minutes ago. She positioned herself near the international arrivals exit, scanning faces, her heart performing gymnastics in her chest. 30 minutes passed. Then an hour. The crowd thinned as flights stopped arriving. Her phone stayed silent. He wasn't coming. The realization hit like a physical blow. After 5 years, after that message that had made her hope again, he'd stood her up. Changed his mind. Moved on. Decided she wasn't worth it after all. She drove home in numb silence, her mind blank with shock and disappointment. She made tea she didn't drink. Stared at her phone. considered and discarded a dozen messages that ranged from angry to heartbroken. That's when her mother appeared in the doorway, her expression careful and worried. "Lena, darling. There's something I need to tell you." "Not now, Mom. I just need to. It's about Dante Moretti." Everything stopped. "What about him?" Her mother sat down, took her hands. 3 months ago, I received a call from a lawyer. He said he represented Dante, that there had been an accident. A car crash. Dante was severely injured, multiple surgeries, months of recovery. His family. She paused, choosing words carefully. "They didn't want you to know. They told the lawyer that it would be better if you moved on, if you thought he'd abandoned you." The words came from very far away. "Is he alive?" "Yes. The lawyer said he's been trying to contact you since he was well enough, but his family has been blocking his attempts. They've been telling him that you're married, that you've moved on, that you don't want to see him." "Where is he?" "Lena, you have a good life here. You've worked so hard." "Where's he?" Her mother sighed, pulled out a folded paper from her pocket. "His estate. The same one where you stayed 5 years ago. The lawyer gave me the address in case you ever asked. He said." She hesitated. "He said Dante's been waiting for you to come. That he's been waiting every day." Lena was moving before her mother finished speaking. She grabbed her keys, didn't bother changing out of her suit, didn't think about what she was doing or what it meant. The drive to the estate took 4 hours. She didn't remember any of them, only the growing certainty that he'd tried to come to her, that he'd been hurt, that his family had stolen 3 months from them. 5 years she'd understood. 3 months of lies she couldn't forgive. The gates were closed when she arrived at dusk. She leaned on the intercom until someone answered. "Miss Cruz," Maria's voice, older but unmistakable. "You shouldn't be here. Let me in, Maria. Or I'm climbing these gates." A long pause. Then the gates whispered open. The estate looked the same, those ancient oaks forming a canopy over the drive, that impossible mansion at the end. But it felt different now, weighted with history and loss and 5 years of longing she tried to deny. Maria met her at the door. The older woman's stern face showed actual emotion, worry maybe, or sadness. "He doesn't know you're coming," Maria said quietly. "The family has told him you moved on. Got married. That you didn't want to see him. They lied. I know. But he believes them. He's been different since the accident. Quieter. Sadder. Like something broke that the doctors couldn't fix." Maria's eyes were suspiciously bright. "Maybe it would be kinder to let him think." "No." Lena's voice was steel. "Where is he?" "The library. He spends all his time there now." Of course. The library where they'd first really talked, where everything had started to shift between them. Lena climbed the stairs with her heart in her throat, her hands shaking with anticipation and anger and fear. The library doors were closed. She opened them without knocking. He stood at the window, his back to her, one hand braced against the frame like he needed the support. The late afternoon sun painted him in gold and shadow. He was thinner than she remembered, his posture careful in a way that suggested recent pain or healing injuries. A scar ran down the left side of his face, visible even from behind, new, still slightly pink, jagged and brutal. "I told you I wasn't hungry, Maria," he said without turning, his voice rougher than she remembered. "I'm not Maria." He went absolutely still. For a moment he didn't move at all, didn't even seem to breathe. Then, slowly, so slowly it hurt to watch, he turned around. The scar was worse from the front. It ran from his left temple down to his jaw, a vicious line that must have required dozens of stitches. His left eye had a slight droop at the corner, suggesting nerve damage. There were other scars too, one on his neck, another disappearing under his collar. The accident had nearly killed him. But his eyes were the same. Dark and intense and looking at her like she was a ghost he'd given up hoping to see. "Lena." Her name came out broken. "You didn't come to the airport." Confusion crossed his face. "What airport?" "Friday. Terminal 2. 3 p.m. You sent me a message." Her voice cracked. "I waited for 2 hours." Understanding flooded his features, followed immediately by rage. "I never sent that message. I've been trying to contact you for 3 months. Every call blocked, every email returned, every letter intercepted." His hands clenched into fists. "My family said you were married. That you'd moved on. That you made it clear you didn't want to hear from me. I'm not married. I've never been married. I've been," her voice broke completely. "I've been waiting. For 5 years I waited like you asked, and then I came back and you were gone and I thought. They lied to both of us." His voice was raw with fury and pain. "My father. My cousins. They said it was for my own good, that I needed to focus on the business, that you were a distraction I couldn't afford. They said you'd sent a letter saying you'd met someone else. I never sent a letter. I never. She took a step toward him, then another. What happened to you? Car accident. He touched the scar self-consciously. Someone cut my brake lines. Probably my father's people trying to tie up loose ends. I went off a cliff, rolled 3 times. Broke both legs, fractured my skull, punctured a lung. I was in the hospital for 2 months, surgery after surgery. His voice dropped. I tried to get to you. I tried so hard, Lena. But I couldn't even walk for 6 weeks, and by the time I could, they'd convinced me you didn't want me anymore. I never stopped wanting you. The admission came out fierce. I tried. God, I tried to move on, to build a life where you didn't exist. But you were always there. Every achievement felt empty because I couldn't share it with you. Every success felt hollow because you weren't there to see it. They stared at each other across the library, 5 years and 3 months and 1,000 lies between them. Then she was moving, crossing the distance, not caring about dignity or pride or self-preservation. She reached up, traced the scar with gentle fingers. Does it hurt? Not anymore. His voice was rough. You came back. You tried to come to me. I'll always try to come to you. He caught her hand, pressed it against his scarred face. Even if it takes another 5 years. Even if I have to crawl. I'll always. She kissed him. 5 years of longing poured into that kiss. She grabbed his face, careful of his scars, and kissed him like she could make up for all the time they'd lost. He responded immediately, his arms wrapping around her, pulling her against him with a strength that suggested his injuries were mostly healed. The kiss tasted like coming home after a war, like everything she'd been missing finally clicking into place. When they broke apart, both gasping, he rested his forehead against hers. I thought I'd lost you, he whispered. You can't lose something that was always yours. Lena. No. Listen. She pulled back enough to meet his eyes. I tried to build a life without you. I did everything right, education, career, stability, everything we said I should want. And it was good. I was proud of it. But there was always this absence. This space where you should have been. I was only half alive. You deserve better than me. Better than this world. I deserve to choose. She cut him off fiercely. And I choose you. I choose this. I choose us. If you'll still have me. His laugh was shaky, disbelieving. If I'll have you? Lena, I've been half dead for 5 years. You're not just something I want, you're the only thing that makes me want to live. The confession hung between them, raw and honest. Then he was kissing her again, deeper, more desperate. 5 years of denial and 3 months of thinking she'd moved on, channeled into desperate need. His hands tangled in her hair. Her fingers worked at his shirt buttons. The kiss turned heated, frantic, 5 years of longing demanding immediate resolution. Lena, he breathed against her mouth. If we do this. We're doing this. She pushed his shirt off his shoulders, saw more scars. On his chest, his ribs, souvenirs of the accident that had nearly taken him. We've wasted enough time. My family can go to hell. She kissed along his jaw, down his neck. I'm done being reasonable. I'm done being patient. I'm done pretending I can live without you. Thank God, he muttered and pulled her toward the couch. What followed was not gentle or particularly romantic. It was desperate and honest, and everything they'd been denying themselves. The late sun painted them in gold, turned them into something beautiful and real, 2 people finally claiming what had always belonged to them. Afterward, tangled together on the library couch, she traced the scars on his chest. Dozens of them, some from the accident, some from the violent life he'd led before. What happens now? She asked quietly. Now I face my father. His voice was determined. I tell him this ends. The interference, the manipulation, the lies. It ends. He tried to have you killed. And failed. He's old, Lena. Sick. Lung cancer, he's got months, maybe a year. But I'm done waiting for him to die. I'm taking what's mine. Which is? My life. My choices. You. He tilted her chin up. If you'll marry me. She should have been surprised by the proposal, but somehow it felt inevitable. That's assuming a lot. Is it? He smiled, confident despite the scars. You came back. You chose me. Everything else is just paperwork. Your father will accept it or die alone while I build the life I want. His voice was hard. I've spent 5 years playing by his rules. No more. It took 2 weeks to arrange the confrontation. Dante's father agreed to meet at the estate, perhaps thinking he still had control, that he could manipulate his son one more time. They arrived together. Lena in a dress that cost more than her first car, Dante in a suit that made him look like the Don he'd become. His father waited in the study, surrounded by old men who'd been his allies for decades. He looked smaller than Lena remembered, eaten away by illness and age. "So you've brought her," the old man said, his English still accented after 50 years in America. "Your obsession." "My future wife," Dante corrected. "We're here for your blessing, but we'll proceed without it if necessary." "You think I'll bless this? You marrying a nobody? A drug cook?" "She's a doctor of chemistry and a lawyer with a practice in international criminal law." Dante's voice was cold. "She's brilliant and brave and more than you'll ever understand. And yes, I expect you to bless this marriage. Because if you don't, I'll make sure your final months are very unpleasant." The old man's laugh was bitter. "You'd threaten your dying father? You tried to have me killed. You lied to keep us apart. You've forfeited the right to father-son courtesy." Dante stepped forward. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to give us your blessing. You're going to announce that I have your full support in all my decisions. And you're going to die knowing that everything you built will be run by someone who doesn't share your values. And if I refuse? Then I cut off your medical care. Your morphine. Your hospice nurses. You die in pain and alone." Dante's voice didn't waver. "Choose quickly. I'm not a patient man anymore." The old man looked between them, saw that his son was serious, that his leverage was gone, that death was coming whether he cooperated or not. Finally he nodded, a small, defeated gesture. "You have my blessing. For what it's worth." "It's worth closure," Dante said. "That's all I needed." 1 week later they visited Lena's mother to ask for her blessing. Her mother took one look at them, the way they stood together, the way they looked at each other, and started crying. "I already knew," she said, pulling them both into a hug. "I've known since that night 5 years ago when he came to say goodbye to me before sending us away. He loves you more than life. And you love him the same way. How could I say no to that?" "So you're okay with this?" Lena asked. "With who he is, what he does? I'm okay with him making you happy. With him keeping his promises. With him being willing to sacrifice everything for your safety." Her mother touched Dante's scarred face gently. "Besides, he's paying my medical bills. I'm contractually obligated to like him." They laughed, all three of them, and for the first time in 5 years, Lena felt complete. The wedding was small, held in a garden overlooking Lake Zurich on a perfect autumn day. Her mother was there, healthy and radiant. Maria attended, crying throughout the ceremony. A handful of Dante's most trusted people, the ones who'd helped him survive his father's betrayal, stood witness. Cypher wore a bow tie and behaved perfectly. The ceremony was simple, the vows honest. When the officiant pronounced them married, Dante kissed her like he was claiming something precious, something he'd fought years to earn. That night, in their hotel suite overlooking the lake, he pulled her close and whispered against her hair, "Thank you for not giving up on us. Thank you for being worth waiting for." 5 years? He mused. "We lost 5 years." "No." She looked up at him, smiling. "We spent 5 years becoming people who could actually keep each other. That wasn't loss. That was preparation. You needed to secure your empire, to become someone who couldn't be controlled by your father. I needed to become someone who could stand beside you as an equal, not just someone you saved. You were always my equal." "Maybe. But I needed to believe it." She kissed him softly. "Now we have forever." "Forever," he agreed. "Though I plan to make you regret marrying a criminal within the week. I'm a criminal defense attorney married to a Mafia Don. I think we're past regrets." He laughed, and the sound was free and genuine and everything she'd been waiting 5 years to hear. Outside, the Swiss night was clear and full of stars. Inside, two people who'd survived hell to find each other finally had their forever. They'd been forged in fire, a chemistry prodigy turned drug cook turned lawyer, and a Mafia Don who'd risked everything for someone who challenged him to be better. Together they were unstoppable. And they were finally, impossibly, completely free. Want more intense, passionate romance with defiant heroines and morally complex heroes? Follow for exclusive stories, early access to new releases and bonus chapters. Drop a comment telling me which moment between Lena and Dante made your heart race. I read every single one and your feedback fuels my writing. New story dropping next week. A brilliant hacker gets caught by the FBI agent who's been hunting her for years, but he offers her a deal she can't refuse. Enemies to lovers. High stakes. Intense chemistry. Don't miss it.